Hi, it's Bob from Oldawan Tools here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I want to take a look and run you through the process of finding the sweet spot, a very basic technique for mounting your knife in the wicked edge sharpener. This will actually work for most clamping systems out there. There's just slight variations with the wicked edge as opposed to other systems. But basically what we're going to do is try to find the location front to back and up to down and match the angles on the knife as it exists. As a general rule, for me, the starting point for most kitchen knives, there isn't a whole lot of curvature to the blade. It's a pretty large circle radius that you're dealing with. And so I start with them mounted in the clamp with the cutting edge about centered on any of the clamping systems. For a lot of your pocket carries or hunting knives, there's a lot more curvature in the blade that you're dealing with. So, you've got a more drastic drop, a tighter curve, or on this Lambert, a little bit of a recurve through the belly and then down to the tip also. So for those particular styles where it's got more curvature in it, I usually start with about 2/3 of the cutting edge to the back and about 1/3 to the front. And that's just my starting mounting point for finding the sweet spot. So the wicked edge has got some really nice functionality built into it for repeatability that you're going to want to use for every time you come back to sharpen the knife. From the basic sharpener video, we saw the ruler, which we're going to use to record the tip position, and we'll actually see that used now. And also the depth key, which is going to control how far down into the vise the knife is sitting, so that's easily repeatable. So we're going to mount up, this particular knife is from Zyka. It's a laminated Damascus VG10, and it's a fully flat ground knife, so the taper goes all the way from the spine to the cutting edge. The steel continually gets thinner. On the wicked edge, that can be a challenge for clamping because one side of the clamp is straight up and down, and the other side comes out. It's not going to fit that edge nicely, so the knife is actually going to want to lean to the left, or when you get it tight, it's going to want to go back and forth as you're working with it. So what you need to do is actually shim it into the vise a little bit, and there's a lot of different methods that people use for doing this. I've had people tell me about matchbook covers, double-sided foam tape from 3M, basically anything that's going to compress down thin against the spine and still give you some thickness above that is going to do the job. I like using chamois myself personally. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is actually make sure that the bottom screw on the sharpener is retracted so that the vise is coming in all the way on the bottom. We want to end up with the thickness between the vise, the two sides of the vise being about even, so the two sides are parallel coming up. That's also going to help us keep the knife stable. So once I've got that done, I'm going to wrap the spine. I'm going to take my depth key. For me, I like using the top set of holes for depth for most knives, up until it gets to about an inch. The cutting edge gets about an inch above the top of the vise, and that's when I move it down to the lower set of holes. If you're getting into cleavers or things like that, you can actually work without the depth key at all and set it down all the way onto that first screw or just above it to get a little more depth into the vise for you. And we're going to use the key to open up our top a little bit. And I've got the chamois wrapped around it. And again, I'm going to go about centered to start with. And then the clamping power on any of these two-screw clamping systems really comes from the bottom. So we're just going to snug the top screw just enough to hold the knife in place. And then the bottom screw is going to push out the right-hand side of the vise and actually provide a lot of the clamping force. And while that's doing that, I like to look straight down on the knife and watch for it to be moving. And if it does move at all, then I'll twist it the opposite way as it tightens. And once I've got it nice and snugged in place, the knife shouldn't wobble at all when you're moving it. And you should be able to easily lift up the sharpener by it as well. With the 22-pound granite base, that's a little harder to do, but the paper stone is not bad. So now we're going to look for the sweet spot and the angle. And what I do is I take a marker, in this case it's a Sharpie chisel tip. Anything with a nice wide tip on this works well. And just actually slice right into the marker all the way down the cutting edge. And that's going to color in that bevel for you on both sides of the knife nicely. Great. So now the first step that I do once I've got that edge colored in is to actually find the angle. And I like using a very fine stone so that I'm not reprofiling the edge as I'm doing this process. You could also do this with a set of ceramics, even the microfines. I find that the Sharpie marker recolors the ceramics in, which makes them look bad and it's hard to clean off. I like mine at least looking clean, even if it doesn't affect the sharpening performance. So I'm going to use the 1000 grit diamond here. And I'm just going to pick an angle to start with that I think is fairly close for this knife. And I'll slide it in to about 17 degrees marked on the base rod. And then just lightly make some passes right up from the vise. And now I'm looking for what the Sharpie marker is showing me in terms of removing where the stone is hitting. It'll actually remove the marker for us. And I guessed pretty close, actually. We're leaving just a little bit of Sharpie down on the shoulder at this point, at that angle. So I'll come in just a little bit more. And I'm right-handed, so I like starting on the right-hand side. There's no particular reason for starting on the right as opposed to the left. And that looks pretty good. I've got just a touch of marker still left, so let's bring it down into 15 and see what that does for us. And it looks pretty good. I'm removing all the marker now because I could be just hitting right on the shoulder at this point. I'm going to go ahead and recolor in the edge and just check that angle and make sure that it looks very good. And it's great. I'm removing all the Sharpie across the full bevel now at this point at 15 degrees on that side. So my next step in terms of process is then to test for the sweet spot front and back. So basically what we want to do is, since the stone is moving on a radius of a circle, we want to make sure that that's matching the curvature of the knife so that we get a nice even bevel width all the way down the cutting edge. The angle will be equal or pretty close to equal on a horizontal plane continuing straight out. But as soon as you drop down off of that horizontal plane onto the circle, you want basically the radiuses to be equal for equal angles to work out. So I'm going to recolor in the cutting edge, and then I'm just going to make a couple light passes down the entire blade length. And I'm pretty close to the right spot here. So what I'm seeing looking at it is that the Sharpie is taken off completely, coming down through the belly, and as I get close to the tip, the line drops down onto the shoulder. So in terms of a triangle, what that's telling me is that at the tip, the triangle is actually a little too narrow. So what I've got to do is make it shorter, basically, to widen it back out. So I've got to bring the tip of the knife back towards the clamp. So what I'll do is I'll insert my vise key back into the system and loosen up my clamp. And then just slide the knife back a little bit here and tighten it up. And again, watching for it to make sure it's not tipping or anything. And I can remove those two keys, and I'll color back in my edge again. And then just do the very same thing, coming all the way down. And I've got just a touch more left at the tip of the knife that's up on the cutting edge. So we're going to come back just a touch more. So now we've got the knife shifted back a little bit, and we'll recolor in the edge again. And again, just make some light pass down the full length of the blade. And again, we're just looking for what's happening. And we're, again, taking off the Sharpie all the way out to just right at the tip. There's just the slightest little bit left. So we'll bring the knife back just a little bit more, insert our depth key, loosen up the vise, and reclamp. Recolor in the blade. Make our pass all the way down. And now I'm in great shape. I've got the Sharpie coming all the way along the full length of the blade, following the bevel nice and evenly. You can play with this actually a little bit. If you wanted to get a little angle gain at the tip and have a little wider angle, you could bring it back in even farther. And if you wanted the tip to be even sharper, you could push it out. The thing that you're going to end up with in that case is that the bevel is not going to look nice and even all the way down the edge. So that's what this technique is really for, is finding that location where the bevel is going to look nice and even for you all the way down the edge. And I like doing this even if I'm going to reprofile. I'll find this location and this starting angle on a knife, and then I'll start from here as a starting point for reprofiling to a lower angle. So once we found it on the right-hand side of the knife, we need to check the left-hand side. On most clamping systems, since you only work one side at a time, you would now just flip the knife over and check the second side. With the wicked edge, we can just slide the stone onto the second side, bring this into the same angle marking of 15, and do our check on the second side. And hopefully, everything matches up nice and pretty, which it does in this case. This knife has been sharpened on the system before, so everything's been evened up. Oftentimes, you're going to find the angle on the left and the angle on the right aren't going to match with one another, or you're going to have a problem where this side is telling you that the tip needs to come back in, even though this side says it's perfect. So then what you need to do is actually make a decision for compromise. And what I usually do is if the left-hand side of the knife is now telling me that the knife has to come back closer, I'm going to move it back closer because I want the bevel on both sides of the knife to look nice and even. And if I come up a little bit on the cutting edge at the tip on the right-hand side, I'm not that concerned about putting a micro bevel on that. I can always come back and clean out that side at the lower angle and make it nice and polished to match. So, and if it was the opposite case, if this was telling me the knife needs to go forward, I would just stick with the match on the right and work with the angle that I find on the left. So with the wicked edge, now that we've found that, that sweet spot, we've got the knife located front to back, what we want to do is be able to record that. So every time you come to resharpen this knife, you can set it at the same angle and get the knife in the exact same position. So your touch-ups go really fast, you remove very little metal with that. So in the book, there's actually, in the instruction book, there is a table at the back here where we would record this particular knife. So this would be our Zyka 8-inch. Our angle would be 15. And what we're going to do right now is find the mark on the ruler and the depth keys that we're going to use to record that. So we slide the depth key back in into the second set of holes, but in combination with the alignment guide. And that's going to give us our tip position. So I'm going to turn this so you can see that. So we're in the bottom set of holes. You can see the empty top set here just above the alignment guide. And the tip position is just a touch behind the C mark. So in this book, what we would want to record then was our Zyka 8-inch. The angle is 15 degrees. Our mark is C, and it's the bottom set of holes for our depth. Now, every time we come back to touch up the knife, we can get it back into the exact same location in the system and match our angle, and we're all set to sharpen. So I hope that was helpful in terms of using the Sharpie trick to find the sweet spot. If you've got questions or concerns about the wicked edge, we're always happy to help. You can find our website, www.oldawan.com. Our contact information is on there. Give us a call. Come by our shop here in Santa Fe. You can also find us on Amazon and eBay.